If you liked Grind, then you're going to like Fortress. This week's limited time game mode for Battlefield 5 is a spin-off of the Breakthrough game mode, taking just one sector with 3 flags in it, and then pitting 2 teams of 32 against each other in an attack and defend situation. The defenders, they simply have to hold out for as long as they can. They've got to keep hold of the flags and stop the attackers from breaching too far into the sector. The attackers, at all costs, need to break in and capture all 3 flags to secure a victory. The mode is supported on just 2 maps this time, Devastation and Hamada, and quick tip, you're going to want to make sure the new camera shake slider in the settings menu is as low as it can go. Things do get a little bit mental here in Fortress. We're going to start by talking about the Hamada map, and if you spawn in as the attackers, you're going to notice a problem almost immediately. You're standing in the middle of the desert, and the defenders, they've spawned up in the fortress on top of the hill, and there's almost no cover between you and the defending team. The defending team have to walk forwards, bipod their MMGs, and they can start firing at you down into the desert. It becomes a little bit of a turkey shoot. So, pop as much smoke as you possibly can, and you might make it through that first initial wave. If not, don't spawn in as soon as the round starts, and wait until that spawn has been confirmed, and then you'll move up to a slightly different spawn, which actually puts you behind sort of a rock face. And that's much better to spawn from than the initial one. I have absolutely no idea why DICE decided to have the attackers in the middle of the desert and the defenders looking right at them the moment they spawn. It's a weird decision and it doesn't make for a good start to the round. The first flag that the attackers are obviously going to go for is right along the edge of the ruined fort location on Hamada, and the attackers will push up and try and break through the external wall onto the first objective. And then that's pretty much where things stay for the rest of the round. In the 6 rounds that I've now played, 3 attack and 3 defend, only once did the attacking team manage to break through and capture all 3 flags within the ruined fort. Many times they break through and capture the first objective, the A point, but that would come at the cost of destroying nearly all of the fortifications to break through, which meant they had no cover left to protect themselves once they owned the point. The defending team would sit slightly further back, they'd rain down hell on them, and within a minute or so, the defenders would take the point back. It's just a rinse and repeat scenario. Now, of course, the actual location is a fortress, and ultimately, it should be a lot harder for the attackers to breach in and capture the points. But Hamada's design doesn't really allow the mode to really flow beyond that first objective. There's lots of elevated platforms behind the first objective that sit around the B point. That means the defending team can just fall back and have a new defensive line ready just a few meters away from where they were previously, and because of the elevation, the attacking team who've just taken the first objective are then at an even bigger disadvantage. They're now inside the fort, but they've got next to no cover, and their only permanent solution, trust me, this is the only way, is to really drop back down outside of the fort and use the solid exterior wall on the hill below as cover. But that isn't within the capture zone of the first objective, so you can understand the problem here. Now, I can understand the premise of setting up the defensive lines in such a way that the attackers do have a harder time. I think that's pretty much how it should work. The attackers shouldn't find it easy to capture anything, but here, I think everything on Hamada is too shallow, and then it's spread too wide across the edge of the fort. Using that width, you'd think that would work quite well. Maybe as the attackers, you could flank all the way around and get into some of the objectives further behind, but ultimately, if you do try and flank, you're going to find an MMG bipod camper on an elevated piece of cover that's just going to kill you. Also, DICE decided to allow bombers on the Hamada map for the defenders, and I think the attackers as well, so to add to the infantry spawned grenade spam and explosive spam, you've got continuous strafing of bombers dropping yet more explosives into the mix. I'm sure there's some kind of appeal to players here, but that completely indefensible explosive drop from the bombers, that gets really annoying really fast. Hamada on Fortress is a frustrating experience for attackers, and I think pretty much an easy win for the defenders most of the time. But once you've worked your way through a round of attack and a round of defense on Hamada, you get to move round to Devastation, the second map available in Fortress, and I think here the game mode absolutely makes sense, and it is good fun if you like this type of game mode. The defenders are entrenched into the massive cathedral in the centre of the map, and the attackers, they have to break in through several different entrance points and capture the 3 flags located inside the cathedral. The map has plenty more fortification positions added. They supply the defenders with a good, strong starting position, and the multiple levels of defense, because it's sort of set up in stages the closer you get to the cathedral, that gives the defenders the opportunity to defend all of the entrance points at any one time. But with so many different entrance points, those 32 defenders on your team, they can be spread quite thin. And that makes the first objective point here on Devastation a much better battleground than the one on Hamada. The capture zone itself extends outside the broken wall of the cathedral and onto the ground in front of it, and that gives the attackers just a small window to get a foothold into the match. The zone then extends inside the cathedral, giving the battle more depth and an opportunity for the fight to be more meaningful than simply popping your head out, maybe doing a few bits of damage and then dying to a headshot or something. There's a fairer distribution of cover out here, and the closer you get to the cathedral walls, there's more cover for you to use as well. So at the start of a round, if the attackers can make a big push initially right up to that exterior wall, they can start competing right away, and you'll probably end up having a much more fun round than you did on Hamada. Once you work your way inside the cathedral though, things start to get really interesting. The DICE team has kitted out the cathedral with more internals, more fortification positions, scaffolding to provide some more elevation, and new solid cover in certain areas to block lines of sight. The B objective takes place right in the middle of the cathedral, and you've got entrances on either side of it, so it can become a little bit of a crossfire situation, but as long as the defending team can keep up their fortifications, then they're likely going to hold on to the point for most of the round. If the attackers can kind of create a pincer attack from both sides of the entrances at the same time, there's a really big chance they'll actually take the flag for themselves, and they'll end up pushing the defenders right back to the final flag. Here, at that final flag, the catwalk that oversees all of the objective and some of the B objective as well, that's really, really important. And I think as the attacking team, you're going to have to focus on it. It creates this little nest that the defenders can use, and they can pretty much oversee everything that's going on. The attacking team has to focus on it, and they have to get rid of those defending players as quickly as possible. Maybe even moving up the stairs and taking that nest for themselves. That's a great way that you can ensure that you capture the point relatively quickly. Devastation is by far and away the better of the two maps on offer here for Fortress, as I think it's actually set up in a way that embodies the mode, that breaching and entering scenario, but it doesn't make the match too one-sided towards the defenders. Hamada is really frustrating as an attacker, and you really do feel like you're slamming your head against a brick wall. Here on Devastation, the game mode moves back and forwards. Sometimes the attackers have the upper hand, and they can breach in, and they can make a surprise attack, but then the defenders respawn and can take the point back very, very quickly as well. I think it's got a much better balance overall here on Devastation. There is one overarching tactic in Fortress that you need to be using. You need to be popping smoke grenades anytime you get the chance. There are certain points on both maps where large open spaces dominate the combat for a short period of time, and those positions are important to get through as soon as possible if you're the attackers. Starting around on Hamada, if you're a medic, you're going to want to instantly pop your smoke launcher and cover the area that you're trying to run into, because the defenders are looking right at you. Starting on Devastation, you do get a lot more cover, but as you come to cross the road to move up towards the cathedral, that bit is much more open. That needs to be smoked out so that the defending bipodders can't see you as clearly. Smoke is key to making sure your flanks are successful. It's key to making sure as defenders you cover yourself up whilst rebuilding fortifications or reviving a fallen teammate, and it's key to ensuring that the gunfights you have are the ones that you can actually win. For example, if you're holding a Tommy gun and some MMG bipodder is set up 50 meters away, absolutely hammering you, you don't want to take that gunfight because you're not going to win. So instead, pop down a smoke grenade, move and find some solid cover instead. If you don't have access to smoke grenades, take as much cover as you can, and when somebody does smoke the area, which invariably they will do quite quickly, then take the opportunity to move. There's plenty of points across the two maps where you can pick up ammo, so if you do have smoke grenades, don't be scared to just keep popping that stuff all over the battlefield. Honestly, it's the best way to make sure that you can't easily be picked off by the enemy team. Overall then, Fortress is definitely running in the same vein as the grind game mode. Come and play this game mode if you predominantly like infantry-focused combat and you're looking for that meat grinder experience. It's a great place to grind out some weapon assignments whilst you're at it, so if you've got a long list like mine, then maybe try and play this a bit more often. If you're not a fan of that playstyle though, just go and play something else like Conquest or regular Breakthrough. Those game modes spread out the gameplay a lot more, they introduce vehicles, it's that combined arms setup. The mode is only here for a week, and then it's going to make way for the new Mercury map coming in 2 weeks' time, which ultimately I am a lot more excited about, but I will be playing Fortress probably for the next 7 days in Battlefield 5. A big thank you for watching this video today. Let me know your thoughts on this game mode down below in the comments section, and until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.